Good evening. There are new developments tonight in that federal immigration raid in Sandusky earlier this week.
We are learning that many of those suspected of being here illegally were parents. And as Andrew Horansky found out, there are questions tonight over what to do with their children. And Drew, these lives are really the collateral damage here.
Absolutely, Sarah, human collateral damage. And that was really the purpose of a news conference here in Lorain late this afternoon that brought together a number of people from different walks of life. After more than 50 U.S.-born children, ranging in age from infants to teens, had their parents whisked away without a plan for them. A gathering of church and state at El Centro, with community advocates and politicians coming together with church leaders, all of them concerned about the children of more than 100 suspected illegal immigrants who were taken into custody Tuesday in a massive ICE sting. Armed agents stormed into two Corsos nurseries in Erie County without warning and in turn left more than 50 children without mothers and fathers. Officials here say they're now living within a loose network of families and friends, and though they know of no situation where a child is in danger, they say the circumstances are both un-American and immoral.
The children don't know where their parents are, and there's just a lot of trauma. And so we plead with Congress to please do something that's both just and merciful.
It was designed to create fear and send a message to a very specific population. It does not even make sense as a law enforcement strategy. It's more reminiscent of a different era, in a different time, in a different continent, about 75 years ago. And that should give us all pause.
And one of the men, I understand, taken into custody this week had been in this country for more than 30 years. In fact, he was a grandfather. Most of the children, I'm told, were very young. And one of the challenges here is that they are losing essentially the primary caregivers in their family, the primary breadwinners. So the economic impact, of course, is very real as well.
Absolutely, Drew. As for those parents, do we know where they're being held tonight?
Learning a little bit more about that as well, Sarah. We understand the men and women were separated. Women basically in Michigan, men at a facility in Youngstown, unable tonight to have contact with their children. Unclear when they'll even see them again, let alone hear from them.
All right, Andrew Horansky in Sandusky tonight. Thanks.